I'm Oliver Fuseli. I'm the managing director at Great Guns. And this is Addison. He's Addison Capper. He's the North American editor at LBB.
This is the 8th episode, right, Oliver, I think, of this series.
Yes.
And the idea is, like, we just kind of missed hanging out with new friends and old friends. And the idea behind this panel series really was, I guess, speak to people a bit more like relaxed and kind of like we were speaking over a glass of wine or a beer or something like that. And like make it a bit less worky, so to say.
I wish we would have a glass of wine, Addison.
I know,
you
right?
Said that.
I mean, I'm in Berlin.
Could have done a little bit later in the day. Yeah. Happily obliged.
Duly noted for all future panels, and we'll bring you back for the regroup. But so look, we're honored to have you both as a guest today. Everybody's time is so valuable today, and this is just really an honor for us to be able to speak to both of you. So I'm going to introduce you guys again. I know we spoke a little bit prior to starting rolling, but here we go. It's Mandi Holdorf, Director of Integrated Production at 215 McCann in San Francisco. Welcome.
Good morning. Good afternoon.
We didn't talk about this prior to, but I did a little bit of research on you, and there's just so many interesting things about you that like little tidbits. I saw a photograph that was so amazing. It happened to be at a winery. It was in the front of an all vintage truck.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God! It was the Bridge. It was Lambert Bridge Winery. So is that where you got married?
No, so 4 years ago, I was freelancing and living the dream. And my husband actually got a job at a place called Single Thread Farms, which is a 3-star Michelin restaurant that wasn't conceived at the time. So he started working up in Healdsburg. We were living in Marin. And I was walking downtown, saw this cute little farmhouse for sale. We bought it and moved up to the wine country and never looked back. And I was doing COVID before COVID. So we live up in the wine country, just about 70 miles north of San Francisco.
Wow. Well, it looks beautiful. I do love that area of California. It is so amazing. Also, were you a director's rep? Did I hear?
That's how I started. Yeah, I actually I worked for Rebecca Reber and Brooke Covington. I don't know if you know those two ladies. Yeah, I stumbled into it. I was actually, I dropped out of law school and like orientation of law school and found myself at a bar and met an agency producer who then actually introduced me into directing or representing directors. It's actually like the best way to understand the business. It's like, okay, this is who BBDO has for clients. These are the hitters. Like these are the producers. These are the creatives. So it was a great intro. I loved it.
Wow, it's amazing. Well, our next guest is Kerry Hill, EVP. She's the Director of Production for FCB North America. Welcome.
Thank you.
Good and I know we did talk a little bit about a couple of things that I pulled up, but I think one that is really just amazing to me, I'm going to go to the one that it never felt better connected to each other than they do today. Maybe you could just kind of explain that. I took it from an article that I think LBB might have done, but I just thought it was so amazing during pandemic. Maybe you want to explain that.
I mean, last year when we went into lockdown and there was, obviously everyone was sort of like, what do we do next? And clients, were really eager to get commercial messages out there. We started picking up the phone and calling our colleagues in the industry. Clients were calling us, personally at all times of the day and night. And I really think there was this moment where everybody literally was just saying, okay, we're in this together, and sharing tips of how to get through it. I learned this, I saw this, here's a great resource. What do you think about this for the future? How are you doing personally? And I mean, I had never experienced such collaboration and such a warm feeling of, wow, these people are amazing and good human beings. I'm so lucky to be a part of this. Okay, let's go do this together. So I really felt motivated by that. And I think it was a turning point for me personally, but also for the industry in terms of how we partner.
Wow. It's so amazing. I think it's, one of our guests, one of the earlier episodes, one of the words that they used, it was a sentence was like, "How are you?" And it's just so funny that you just said that you kind of, think that those words don't mean something, but when you're in that situation that we've all been in, and somebody just says, "How are you?" it stops you in your tracks today. So I love that. I think it's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. I think there's a couple of milestones, maybe some anniversaries that you recently had.
Well, when people ask me about my personal life, Mandi, I did raise two boys, so I have a soft spot in my heart for parents, especially in this industry, especially now. But I've been married for 32 years to my husband. I just celebrated 25 years with FCB. So I guess I stick with things. And as long as it's working for me, I'm sticking with them.
I love it. Well, thank you for that. Thanks for sharing, both of you. So let's just get right into it. Is technology making you smarter or more or less intelligent? That's the question. Does it make you smarter or less intelligent? And I think I'm going to go with Mandi because she's on mute.
Great. I was thinking about this actually last night because I actually think it makes us smarter and crazier. So I don't know if it's about being stupid, because for me, there is the ability to read New York Times online. Like every day I can go on, I can read it, I can get that information. I think, Kerry hit on it, like in terms of being smarter, I can connect with my network, my entire network. I never did that before COVID. Right. So in terms of what technology did for us in COVID, it's like, oh, I need this type of technologist. I need this type of, have you guys worked with this director? Like all of that has created a lot more cohesive knowledge, which has made me smarter. I will say, I do think it makes us crazier and then maybe therefore not as smart, because we're just a lot more reactive. I think people are just like, they expect, and we've talked about this before, but it just makes people respond faster. And I think therefore not as thoughtful, and then just a bit crazier. And we don't need to be robot superhumans. Like we need to read more than a headline or read more than the first paragraph of an email. And it's okay to respond in a couple hours because you need to have a thoughtful response. So I think while it makes us smarter, I think it's important to acknowledge what it also does to us and make sure that we're being kind with and thoughtful with our responses and the way we use technology.
It's interesting. You said something that we don't just read the headline. Do you think that allows your colleagues and your creatives and producers to kind of give you their knowledge? Because if you're just talking about headlines, the person that knows about it within your organization is going to speak up because they want to talk about it. They want to speak about it. Does that make sense? Does that happen? Do you find that?
The way that I speak, I pick up a phone like constantly. So I don't know if that's answering your question, but I have a 26-year-old assistant who always says to me, like, no one else calls my phone except my mom. And that's how I connect with people because, right. It's so much better than an email. So I don't know if I'm answering your question.
You are. That is good. It is good. I think, look, people today are so bored with, Zoom. Getting on a phone call, I think, is a treat, because you don't have to worry about your hair, your makeup. You don't have to worry about the background. You don't have to worry about anything. You can do it in your car. So I love that. I think instantaneous communication is good. But the key is that, technology has allowed us to be so much, I think, smarter. I think you're absolutely right. So I appreciate that. I do. Yeah. What about you, Kerry? The technology makes you smarter, or I changed it from stupid. I thought like stupid was such a bad word.
Yeah, so stupid was. I was like, it's harsh.
Stupid is harsh, but harsh.
So I take credit for stupid.
You do. So I said less intelligent.
Yeah. For sure, the technology has made us smarter. I mean, I agree with Mandi in the way we use it, being more thoughtful with it, but it also it gives us access to so many more resources and stories and ways of working. And now when you think about how we're spending our time today than what we were a year and a half ago, we're thinking about bigger ways of working, such different ways of working. The impossible is possible because of technology. And so it opened up the lens, if you will, for what we can accomplish and who we can do that with. We just need to be really thoughtful about it. I definitely agree, though. My word was it's very humbling, because I think that it's so wonderful, the things that can happen. You can read the headline for the day on, cloud-based Frame.io and like all the things that are happening and Beacon technology and what's happening with Unreal. And it can be overwhelming and humbling. And so it's like, we don't have all the answers, but what's ahead of us in terms of technology is so amazing. We are definitely smarter than we were last year, and will be so next year.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it. So number 2, the second question is, the power of words is more important than ever. What is the most inspiring and what is the most annoying word or words that have stood out to you in the past year? And I think I'm going to go with Kerry. She's got a big smile.
Oh, I was thinking about this.
I'm like, don't steal mine. I hope you don't steal mine.
Okay, you go first then. You go first, Mandi.
No,
go first.
Go first, Mandi.
I have a list, so you might go first.
I'll go first with my annoying.
Yeah, I love
the word pivot.
Go for it.
Oh, pivot.
That was on my list.
That's on the list. Yeah, it drives me absolutely crazy. And while it is a word that summarizes such amazing power that at least our industry did. Like, we were shooting in 6 weeks. I mean, literally pulled people out of Bulgaria, figured out how to shoot like a big giant thing in 6 weeks. And for our industry to pivot in such a way to thrive last year thrive is probably a strong word, but thrive is so amazing. But I hate the word pivot. I hate when people tell me to pivot. I'm like, we have absolutely no option. Like, we are just pivoting. So that's my most annoying word of the year.
Yeah.
What's your most inspiring word?
I had 2. So one is called Languishing. I don't know if you have heard of this phrase.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Why I love this phrase is because it is something powerful to me, because it was able to give a definition to the feeling that I was having. Because I wasn't obviously depressed. Well, not obviously, I might have been, but I wasn't depressed, but nor was I flourishing. And so I could identify a word that could represent something that I think a lot of people felt at the early part of this year. And it was actually something that I showed my larger team, and it actually, I think, gave them or empowered them with that information so that they could figure out, oh, this is what this is called, and therefore how can I get out of languishing. And I'd say the other one is bias, like understanding your own bias within DE&I, for me, has been so incredibly powerful to just coin that and keep that in mind as I hire, as I look at directors, as we pick vendors to choose from, in just that word, bringing that word from 2020 and understanding it, for me, has been really powerful.
Wow. So many things to unpack from what you just said. First of all, why don't you give the people that don't know what languish means the simple definition of that?
The simple definition is, it's essentially like the middle ground between depression and flourishing. And so it's this state of, you feel, I don't know exactly how it would be coined, but in terms of how I was reading it, it was like you're in the state of, I just call it languishing, but it's like,
sure.
You feel numb and tired and not really excited about the day.
Yeah, no, that's good. Well, I'm going to go back to the pivot word because I know it's one of the words that is the most annoying. However, when you talked about it in the terms that you did, it was so positive to me because it really does put production, if you will, producers, executive producers, in a category of people that are solution oriented, that are tactile, that are on the ground, boots on the ground, who can come to any situation and find a solution. And that is just so powerful in our industry. And it's why I'm so honored to be able to talk to you two, because again, this is something that I think that all of our listeners and our viewers want to hear, is that we want to know, like, how is your day and how do you make those day to day? I mean, you guys are in the thick of it. You are the leaders that are truly making those decisions. So pivot may have changed, crossed a little bit of a line for me. I think I'm bringing it back over to a little bit more positive. I get the early on, but I think pivot is really a powerful word for producers and people that lead this industry to take note, young people that are coming up in the industry. So I love that. And languish is a word. I now I know how I feel. Now I know the word that I felt. I can now define what I felt for a long time. I didn't know I was languishing.
Now I'm flourishing. I'm flourishing now. I was languishing.
Yes,
yeah. With pivot, and I'm curious if Kerry feels this way too. Like, I think people have always known that producers are fixers, problem solvers. But I think we rose to such an occasion for our clients and for our industries that I feel more respected in this field. Like, I feel like production really, just became something that it's always been, but I think it shone a light to strategy and other facets of our industry, that how powerful producers are this year, just from what we accomplished.
I love that. Well, Kerry, I'd love for you to respond to Mandi with that.
Mandi, I totally agree. Pivot became sort of overused, and I think production are creative problem solvers. So it was like pivoting. Yeah, of course we're going to pivot, guys. We're like transforming, the way we work. It's beyond the pivot. So that became a little annoying, I think, in the way that was regarded. But in fairness, it was a massive pivot. It was a massive change in attitude and approach. And what we saw was the production community and industry just rally really to a pivot and did things together in a way like no other, and really creatively problem solved. And it was not for the weak-hearted. I mean, it took a lot of tenacity and perseverance and creative problem solving and really thinking differently about the ways we can work. So it was for many people, it was the most exciting time, exhausting, but exciting. And for others, it was draining. And I think, Mandi, you mentioned the New York Times. Did you read the New York Times when they labeled this as languishing, that article?
Yeah, and I was like, praise be. I know,
because I too shared that article with so many people and said, okay, this is it. This is what's happening. We are languishing. It was spot on. So
yeah.
I have better now. You're flourishing now.
Am I flourishing? I have days where I flourish. I think I have, it's a journey every day.
I've also just Googled it, and it says another word is dormant, which I feel is kind of a good one.
I'm going to send you, Addison, the New York Times. If you Google the New York Times article on languishing, it's an amazing article.
Yeah, send it to me as well. I'd love to see it. Yeah.
Yeah, and then there's a follow-up that's like, are you languishing? Here's how to flourish. And then it gives you
I love this.
Yeah.
I mean, again, what this series was about for me, when LBB came to Great Guns and to me and asked me to host this series, it was a totally different thing. And I really wanted to hear, I wanted to talk to the leaders that were really making these decisions, because I think a lot of people really don't really know what the executives at your level are doing. And to hear you guys talk, but Mandi, and I'll let you go, Kerry, but for Mandi to say that, it really put the spotlight and raised the bar of production during the pandemic, I so agree. You are now at the level at which you should have always been. And that is that people are, like you said, it's transformative. You've pivoted, you're solution oriented. So I say, people always say in prior to the pandemic that we don't cure cancer, but I got to tell you, agencies and production people cured a lot of things during the pandemic, and I just say hurrah for what we do, and I'm proud of you guys, and again proud of what our industry. But Kerry, go ahead.
Oh, well, I had a couple words on mine, which were I don't like hold hands anymore. I used to like hold hands, but now hold hands has become a little like, okay, we get it, we're going to hold hands, we're in it together. And then the other one, of course, is scrappy and down and dirty when they describe production. So what I've learned, because I've matured so much this past year, I'll say, is that when someone says they want something scrappy and down and dirty, it's now a signal to me that they don't know how to describe what they need from a production approach. So when someone says this needs to be scrappy or down and dirty, to me, it's now like, okay, now you're going to get a one-on-one about what do you mean? Why do you say that? Is it because you want the minimalist effort, expense, time on this job? And that is why, because the content will only be on air in market for a short time, or the client is so strapped on funds, or we have bigger ambition in the works. Why are you saying down and dirty and scrappy? And if you need to say something, let's say minimalist, or let's say, the least expensive or smallest footprint we can imagine on this production, but down and dirty and scrappy are like no bueno.
I love that, because I do think, again, we're all about communication, right? That's what our industry is. And that's why words matter. When you think about a 30 seconds, now 15 and 6 seconds, that you have to sell a product or brand a product with words in 6 seconds, it means a lot. So for you to be able to unpack that for listeners in production or even other industry notables to hear what that you're now asking for is so important, because now we understand a little bit better, so we can be smarter about how we respond to you, or how we support you, or how we give great advice or solutions to whatever the project is. Love that.
Yeah, I think that's true. In this past year, in working so closely with our strategy team, our planning team, our account leads, our creative leads, our clients, we are seeing and exposed to what goes into all of the, how it all comes together, I think in a way that we hadn't seen before. We're in the same meetings, we're on the same Zoom calls. And so there's an appreciation, I think, for everyone's contribution, beyond what we had a year before, which is great. And we see where the overlap is, where as a producer, you now need to really understand the strategy. You now need to really understand the creative ambition in order for you to produce that. And likewise, strategy and account and creative, you really need to understand what goes into a production to get tight, to get to the agility that you need, or the craft that you desire, whatever those components are that you're most seeking in that work. We have to be super clear with the intention of why it's so important and what that work is intended to do in market so that it performs for our clients. And all of that is not it's not a handoff of information anymore. It's an integration and intersection of information. So we truly understand what's driving us to make the decisions that we need to make. So I think that down and dirty and scrappy thing just became sort of a signal to get in there and sort of bring people together and align on the goal for us.
Yeah, I think, I don't know, Mandi, I don't know if you agree with this, but I think that what you just said is that the down and dirty allowed us to, I think we now during the pandemic have had a chance to stop and take a moment and think and reflect, unlike any other time in the history that I can remember. So maybe that is the pandemic can be kind of how we kind of say we were forced to really take a minute, listen to what people are talking about on the Zoom, listen to what our partners and our colleagues are saying, and then make the right decision and communicate to the right person. And it may be everybody on the Zoom, and they all will benefit from that communication. So is that something, have you found you, Mandi, and your agency and your creative department and your producer department kind of slowing down and really kind of thinking a little bit more?
I would say, and this has been why I love 215. Like, we are hyper integrated. I hate, that's another annoying word, integration. But we are. I mean, we understand that we're part of the strategy meetings. Strategy is a part of our production meetings. Not all of them, but the really sort of important pieces. I would say the thing we've done better in the last year is like, it's not just what we're trying to accomplish, but it's also like, what's the media plan? Oh, we're trying to do AR filter. Okay, well, there's no paid media support for that. So should we just do that through Snapchat? And that's like $1,000, whatever. It's like so cheap and we can get the same kind of hits. Or like, we have a silly Spotify media buy. Okay, let's do some cool immersive audio experience there. So I think what's changed for us in the last year is like getting the overall budget and being able to really unpack it collectively together with strategy, creative, and obviously our production teams to see the media and then pinpoint where we want to put our efforts. Because while we did massive projects this year on Xbox because it's a gaming client, and guess what was Gamebusters this year in COVID? Gaming. So yeah. We didn't have the option to do testimonial drop kit. Like, we didn't have that option. And so I think we really used the power of the media and just sort of played to those sort of paid to earn media placements. Or if it was a big media buy, then we put our bigger ducats in that for larger production.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Well, thank you for that. I appreciate it. A lot of information. So let's go to number 3. So what are you really bad at but enjoy?
I'm at the age where if I enjoy it, I'm going to do it whether I'm bad at it or not. Like cooking. I love that. Or I wish I was a better, like, I wish I could make things. I wish I was better, like, with doing something with my hands, like artistically, you know, a paint or something. I'm just not good at it. But if I enjoy it, I'm still going to do it.
Yeah.
So
give us one thing that you like. Do you make pies and you're just terrible at it, but people eat it? Or is there something?
Okay, here's the deal. I'm married for 32 years. I cook nothing. My husband's a great cook, so I don't cook.
I cook nothing.
I cook nothing. I clean, but I'm good at that. And I kind of enjoy it, but I make nothing.
Nothing. I love it. That's good. I think that's a really good answer, though. But, you know, it's like if you love it, it doesn't matter if you're good or bad at it.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't. No, it really doesn't.
You've got a good answer to this as well, which kind of.
I do. You know, I told this. We were talking about this, and I can remember as young as 10 years old, and I don't know if it was my parents wanted to get me out of the house because I was so hyper and still am. But I was sent to art school in a local little town outside of New Orleans almost every weekend. And I just was the worst painter. I still paint today. I have a room with canvases and paint. And I go in there every once in a while. And I still do paint. And my big thing is doing watercolor thank you notes. They're not great. I want to paint real. I just am the worst painter ever. But I love it so much. And one day I think I'm going to wake up and I'm going to paint a masterpiece. It'll never happen, but it doesn't matter. I do love it.
I love that.
Anyway, Mandi, what about you?
I'm with Kerry. I have so many things that I'm not great at that I do, but I would say I'm actually really bad at math. Not simple math.
Right.
Math.
Right. Yeah.
And
yeah.
budgeting. And I'm talking about just in general, but I love budgeting. I love doing own personal finances. I love putting it in a budget spreadsheet. I love that, but I never own up to what I put in a budget. Like I'm really bad at it, but I do it so often. Like it actually brings me like calm. I love it. But I'm not good at it.
I love that. You know, I people call me the abacus producer. Literally, I have to do everything on an abacus because I'm so bad at math. But I love that. I love of all the things that you could say. Math would have not been the one that I would have thought you would have said.
It's just like it's so funny because, and I don't know what kind of producer you are, Kerry. I'm not like, I kind of know where the bones are, but when I have a budget, I kind of like throw it up in the air and put my head down and then kind of pick up the pieces as I go. Obviously, if there's like a giant thing that happens, but I don't do the thing. I like admire the producers and I have them on my team that are like, well, we came in and we are actualizing as we go and da 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 da. Like I don't do it. It's like it ends up the same way to me. Like I've been that producer and then, you know, it doesn't matter. I mean, unless you're literally the most irresponsible producer, like the budgeting. Yeah, it's
you must be really good at ballparking then. You must be really comfortable giving a ballpark.
I will tell you, I'm not. I am actually incredibly good at ballparking. It bothers my BA because I'll be like, talent $62,000. She's like, where'd you get that number? I'm like, man, I don't know. And then she'll send me her budget back, and it will be like shy of like $5,000.
But that is what it is, right? I mean, you know, it's like, it doesn't matter. There's always a finite amount of money. It's never enough, no matter what, how big or small, it is never enough. But you give a budget and somehow we find a way to make it work. That's what we do. We're producers. So, you know, it's like, I love it. I'm going to let Addison take the next one.
I think a slightly more serious question than the last one. But how do you feel that traits like empathy and vulnerability play a role in your kind of leadership styles? And presuming that you are both empathetic leaders, how do you stop that affecting your personal life? And, you know, how do you stop yourselves absorbing other people's stress? Which sounds a bit brutal, but I think is probably quite an important.
So one of the things I sort of studied the most, I think, this past year was vulnerability and shame and empathy, because what we saw in this past year was, I mean, our teams just being impacted by so much political, you know, social, health issues. And there was no way you could lead a team, you know, of problem solving and helping others do their thing if they were sort of struggling themselves or didn't have a way to express themselves. And this is a little, you know, being a little vulnerable here myself. What I realized is I had to first see myself as a leader and be vulnerable myself with who I was and how I was feeling through it, so that they could trust me with their own situations. And when you talk about the range of situations from the stages of people's life, you know, some people just starting out in their careers and living on their own and just, you know, getting their first job, and then they're in a pandemic in a city by themselves in a studio apartment, to, you know, young couples starting families and having young kids, to people dealing with aging parents. I mean, it was such a range of personal challenges that were impacting our team. And in order to sort of say, well, here's how we'll get through it together, I think it really required a trusting situation. So I had to be vulnerable and talk about myself, you know, and the way I was experiencing it, so that everyone could feel like they could come and talk about themselves or what they needed in an honest way. Some did, some did not, many did not, you know, but I think that we tried very, very hard. I did, and the agency did, to make sure that people felt like it was a safe space to express how you were feeling, whatever that was at the moment. And did it impact personally? I will say this: never what I realize now is there is no line. It's all personal, but the boundary of taking it home with us, because it did start to get pretty heavy, was you had to give yourself permission to not take on everybody's stuff. You know, you have to remain healthy as a leader, and that requires some boundaries of turning off at a certain time at night, or saying, you know, I'm going to just take Saturday, or I'm just going to take a couple hours in the morning just to give yourself space to be healthy, you know, to get your stuff together. So sort of long-winded, but that was the most, I think, transformative personal thing that I experienced in the past year, was teaching myself to be vulnerable, or allowing myself to be vulnerable, and giving a safe space for others to do so.
Do you think as well, this might be a bit of an outdated question by now, but you said that, you know, you felt kind of more together on Zoom. Do you think it's kind of, in a way, kind of easier to be a bit vulnerable on Zoom because you're sat at home and the person you're chatting to is kind of directly in front of you, also sat at home?
Yeah, I think so. I think that really opened us up, because we were looking at each other, and, you know, many people don't turn their cameras on Zoom.
Yeah.
Many do. And so, and, you know, the meetings where it's like, that's okay. It's okay. It's, you know, sometimes it's appropriate you have to have it on, and sometimes it's okay not to, but however you were feeling that day, someone might just feel like it's a camera off day. That's okay. But yeah, I think it did allow us to be, closer to one another because of that. I don't know that would have happened in the office, going from meeting to meeting.
I think for me, like, my leadership style in general is very, I'm pretty self-deprecating, and I do that intentionally with my team and the people around me, because I want to ensure folks know that, like, it's not, everything isn't, I don't know everything, and I haven't always known everything, and I struggle with certain things as well. And so an empathetic leader, I think that's one of the things I probably excel in, but it does the thing where you are able to get your team to trust you, and therefore they then come to you with issues. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't find out if they're in hot water when they're in hot water. Oftentimes they're talking to me during their troubling times within production. So I think ensuring that you are making enough time to have one-on-ones with these people, like like check-ins. And I say this with the luxury of having a fairly small team. But it's in some ways allows them to kind of problem solve for themselves, by giving them examples of things that you've done in the past that haven't worked out, or just showing them that, yeah, you're over budget. Yeah. Welcome to producing. Or, you know, like, oh, you didn't get this rough cut approved. Like, it's fine. Like, this thing ships. Like, I think, that's part of being a leader, and is important for people, at least because production is, like, obviously not for the faint of heart, and it is so stressful and so hard that I like to ensure that my team knows that everyone has a hard time with it and things work out no matter what. So, but in terms of affecting your personal life, like, yeah, we had layoffs. I knew about the layoffs. I sat for days. So I still am guilt-ridden from them. It doesn't stop affecting you. But at the same time, what's great about it affecting my personal life is a lot of these people come and go and will continue to be in your tribe, in your personal life. I mean, the production is so hyper personal. You travel with this dysfunctional group, or you're creating some little crafted, beautiful thing that they've concepted, and you're doing that together as this weird family. So I don't think you can have separation, but you can have boundaries.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you both for being super honest. Anyway, Oliver, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I would just, I mean, look, I think that it's amazing to have such leaders be so vulnerable as you guys have been with that, with all these questions, but that one in particular, because I remember early on in this series, it was early on in the pandemic, that I often thought about you guys thinking like, oh my God, there's a lot of layoffs. And like, how does that, I didn't, you went into the minutia of it, Kerry, of like the young family that just got married and they got a job and they're excited and now it's a pandemic, or, just, again, all of those things. I kept thinking like, how do they deal with this? Like, what is their outlet? And I think now that you guys have kind of really unveiled this in a way that I think that, leaders are leaders for a reason, and being vulnerable and open and trusting your leadership in whatever way that is or format it comes out, I think is really amazing. And for people to see that and hear it, I think is going to inspire and help a lot of young people, and maybe some of the, the not so young people, in moving forward in this industry, because it's amazing. Go ahead, Kerry.
Well, you know what? That's a great point. And if people are watching this, I will say, reach out to your manager or someone you trust at the agency or in your tribe, as Mandi said, because the perception might be that it's inappropriate or that it's too difficult or you don't want to appear weak, but it's actually so the opposite. When you ask for help or you explain that, hey, I'm struggling with something and can you help me get over this, or what can I do to, I just want to make you aware of something that's happening. It's actually freeing. It actually lets your manager or your, the person that's working with you understand how they can best advise you or guide you or help you. So don't take it as a weakness to reach out for help. It's really helping yourself and helping your manager and trying to improve the situation. Don't be intimidated by that.
I love it.
It's fun too. Like, that's what's fun. Like, yeah. I call production companies. How do you do this? How did this happen? Yeah. How do we do that? Like threads of people. Have you guys ever worked with these people? Have you ever done this? Have you put it like, that's what makes this fun, is
so important.
So important.
Yeah.
Couldn't agree with you more. I don't know if you guys remember, but there was a woman, I don't know, I can't remember, I'd have to look it up, but right early on in the pandemic, she sent out, it went viral, the list of the 10 things that make you look intelligent on a Zoom call. One of them was always have a bookcase in back of you. The other was always say scalable. The other one was, I think it was like, oh, excuse yourself because you have a phone call. But one of them was being self-deprecating. And it's so funny because you both have like kind of covered the gamut of it. But anyway, that's really great answers. Let's go on to, thank you, Addison. Let's go on to number 5. So did you have a mentor? And who were they and what have they taught you?
I've had 2. I've had a few, but I'll do the 2 that Richard O'Neill. Yeah, he and while I was at Chiat for 2 years, that's where I was trained, but he taught me not to get sued. Like, he was like so good at ensuring that you covered your bases, that and we're so tight with your BA. Like, he and Linda Dobson, that's what they taught me, like in my infancy. And then I would say Craig Allen, who I don't know if you guys know him. Craig Allen, head of production. Head of production. Yeah, I actually saw him last week. He is not only my mentor, he's one of my best friends, but he is what really taught me. Like, I walked into Venables and I like would go with my binder to set and actualize my stuff and be so concerned. And so he was the one who was like, throw it all up in the air. He would do ballparks, like pull the script up to his head and be like 850, 1.1 million. Like, he just had such a way of being casual about production, which made production more fun for me. And then I think as a leader, he taught me to listen, like just to listen to my team. He threw me into such fiery productions that were so above what I thought was something that I could do, but he was always there to catch me. But he didn't micromanage, and he was just an incredible boss. So he is my biggest mentor.
Well, I didn't know Richard that well, but Craig Allen, so amazing. That's great. Well, thank you for that. What about you, Kerry?
I mean, this is a tough one for me because I think I've had so many, I've been so fortunate to work with such strong, people and like icons. So, but I started at Leo Burnett when I was first out of college, and I worked there for 10 years before I went to Footcone. So there was a woman there, Carla Michelotti, who is funny that you said that, Mandi. She was the head lawyer for Leo Burnett at the time. And she's the also one. It was the decision tree on whether you were going to jail or paying money. And she taught me this whole thing about when you're making a decision, you have to decide if it's money or jail, and if it's your money or the client's money, and it was amazing. And there was another woman there, Marla Johnson, who also business affairs, who kind of that foundational, okay, these are the rules of the road that you need to know. And then more recently, Michael Fosnot, who was the president of FCB for many years, who is now the CMO of the city of Chicago. But Michael was, he was a strategic analytics person that became president of the office. And he sort of had to learn, he learned the creative and the production side. And he just was a very, very logical person, but also who just sort of taught me how to put the emotion aside. Because, just growing up in the business for all those years as a young woman, to be honest with you, and dealing with a lot of the situations you can imagine, just sort of putting the emotional side and staying more fact-based and being determined and just focused on a point of view and going in. I mean, he was really the person that allowed me to do that without being too much of a micromanager. But I totally appreciate the leaders who give you the space, but have the guardrails, and they're allowing you to make decisions on your own, but you always know that there's someone there you can bounce an idea off of. And I think that if there's one thing I try to say, okay, of the best of all of these people that I've worked with, that's the thing. And that's what I'm really trying to do now, is share anything that I know, any shortcuts, any loopholes, any pitfalls, any sort of like thing that I know with the next generation, so that they can be better, so they can learn and they can do, without having to have experienced some of those things, if I can possibly help them avoid that.
I love that. Mandi, do you have, I would assume, without naming names, are you mentoring, or either one of you? I'm sure you are, probably directly and indirectly. You probably don't even know that there's many people that probably look up to you guys and you inspire. But is there specific, whether it's in your personal life or in your business life, is that happening to both of you right now?
Mm-hmm.
Mentorship? Yeah. And I would assume that you're using, go ahead, Mandi.
I mean, there's two things. I mean, I became head of production 4 years ago, so I'm new to running a department, and I remember being like, am I going to like managing? Am I going to like this? And I was also given a team, and they were all mid to junior. And Xbox, you have to you're producing at such a level that you really need that like senior leadership. And so that's what I had to mentor these producers we did like production one-on-ones and those sort of like classes at the end of the day, and they had real homework. And I think what I love the best about my current job, which I'm so surprised by, is seeing these women, they're like doing massive jobs. And not only are they doing them, they're like excelling at them. And they have built these reels where I'm always like, you guys have the best reels. Like you could go, they're not leaving it like right now, but I like to be honest with them, to be like, you guys are, you're doing such a great job. So I would say I'm mentoring my department, and hopefully I also like to be able to be a resource to young account people. Like I love also being able to impact young account people, make sure they know that my door's open, and if they have questions, I mean, it's like what I love about my job.
You guys are amazing, really, truly. And we at LBB and Great Guns, believe me, this is not unnoticed that we're being able to be honored with your presence. I think you're going to inspire people with your thoughts and your answers. And I just wish you all the luck in the world. We just so appreciate you taking the time. It's really valuable. And thank you very much. Hope you guys have a great day.
Thank you guys.
Thank you very much.
We appreciate it.